Can I tell you something that weighs on me like a stone? It's just a sentence, a simple request whispered over the phone that I brushed aside without a second thought. But since that night, those words have carved themselves into my memory, playing on repeat when I least expect it. My name is Ethan, I'm 33, and this story begins on a rainy Friday evening last March. The kind where the clouds hang so low they seem to press against the window panes, where the steady drumbeat of water on glass forms a melancholy rhythm that matches the mood. The kind of evening you'd never imagine would become the dividing line in your life. Alex had called me around 7 p.m. We'd been friends since college, roommates for 3 years, best man at each other's weddings, godfather to each other's kids. The kind of friendship that's supposed to weather any storm. I was in the middle of dinner with my family when my phone lit up with his name. I remember hesitating before answering. It had been one of those weeks. Deadline after deadline at work, my daughter's school play, my wife's parents visiting for the weekend. I was running on empty, desperate for a quiet night at home. "Hey man," I said, stepping into the hallway away from the dinner table noise. "What's up?" His voice sounded different, quieter, like he was speaking from somewhere far away, even though he lived just across town. "Not much," he said after a pause that stretched a beat too long. "Just, I don't know, it's stupid." "No, tell me," I said, glancing back toward the dining room where my family was waiting. Another pause. "Sarah took the kids to her mum's for the weekend," he said finally. "I was supposed to go too, but I told her I needed to finish this project for work." "Did you?" I asked, distracted, watching my father-in-law gesturing for me to return to the table. "No," he admitted. I couldn't face everyone right now. Being on, you know. But now the house is so empty." I remember checking my watch. The movie I'd promised to watch with my kids was scheduled to start in 20 minutes. "Look, I don't want to keep you," Alex continued, his voice growing softer. I don't want to be alone tonight. Could you maybe come over for a bit, just to watch the game or something?" I sighed, mentally calculating how much time I'd already spent away from home that week. How tired I was. How I'd promised my daughter I'd make it through an entire movie without falling asleep this time. "You'll be fine," I told him, forcing a lightness into my voice I didn't feel. "Get some rest. Enjoy the quiet house. Sarah and the kids will be back before you know it." "Yeah," he said after a moment. "You're right, sorry to bother you." "No bother," I assured him. "We'll catch up next week, okay? Maybe grab lunch on Tuesday?" "Sounds good," he replied, his voice flat. "Give everyone my love." "Will do. Take care, buddy." I hung up and returned to the dining room, sliding back into my chair. My wife raised an eyebrow at me in silent question. "Just Alex," I explained, reaching for my water glass. "Feeling a bit lonely with Sarah and the kids out of town." "We could have invited him over," she suggested. I shook my head. "He'll be fine. Sometimes a quiet house is a blessing, right?" The conversation moved on. We finished dinner. We watched the movie. I fell asleep halfway through, despite my promise. The rain continued to fall outside, and I didn't think about Alex again that night. The next morning, I woke to sunshine streaming through the blinds and the sound of my kids arguing over cereal downstairs. Saturday stretched before me with nothing more pressing than yard work and a trip to the hardware store. Normal. Ordinary. The last normal morning I would have for a long time. I was in the garage, sorting through tools, when my phone rang. Sarah's name flashed on the screen. "Hey, Sarah," I answered, wedging the phone between my ear and shoulder as I continued organizing. "How's the visit going?" The sound that came through wasn't words at first, just ragged breathing. "Sarah?" I straightened, something cold settling in my stomach. "What's wrong?" "Have you seen Alex?" she asked, her voice breaking. "Is he with you?" "No," I replied, that cold feeling spreading. "I talked to him last night, but..." "When?" she cut in. "What time?" "Around 7, I think." "Sarah, what's happening?" "I've been calling him all morning," she said, her words coming faster now. "He's not answering. I called Tom next door to check on him, and he said Alex's car is there, but he's not answering the door either." My mouth went dry. Maybe he went for a walk or something. "In this weather?" she asked. The sunny morning I was experiencing clearly wasn't universal. And without his phone? "Ethan, I'm scared. Something's wrong. I can feel it. I'll go over there right now," I promised, already moving toward the door. "I'll call you as soon as I find him." I don't remember the drive to Alex's house. I know I broke speed limits. I know I ran at least one red light. I know I tried calling him repeatedly, each unanswered ring making my heart beat faster. His house looked exactly the same as always from the outside. Blue two-story with white trim. Basketball hoop over the garage. Kid's bike thrown carelessly in the front yard. But something was wrong. I felt it the moment I stepped onto the porch. The newspaper was still in its plastic sleeve by the door. The porch light was on despite the daylight. I rang the bell, knocked, called his name, nothing. The spare key was still hidden in the fake rock by the garden hose. My hands shook as I retrieved it. I won't describe what I found inside. I can't. Even now, months later, I can't form the words, but I know with absolute certainty that Alex hadn't been fine, that he'd needed someone that night, that he'd reached out to me, his oldest friend, and I'd dismissed him with 4 careless words. "You'll be fine." The next hours blur together in my memory. The 911 call, the arrival of the emergency services, the call to Sarah that I never want to make again. The questions from officials that I couldn't properly answer because I hadn't been paying attention. Did he seem depressed? Had he said anything concerning to you recently? When was the last time you spoke with him? To that last question, I could only answer, "Last night, he asked me to come over. He said he didn't want to be alone." I found out later that Alex had been struggling for months, that Sarah had been worried about him, which is part of why she'd wanted him to come with them that weekend, that he'd been to see a doctor the previous week and received news he hadn't shared with anyone. I learned that he'd called 3 other friends that night after me. None had answered. I discovered a note on his desk, written in his familiar scrawl, dated the night before. It wasn't addressed to anyone specifically, but one line has burned itself into my memory. I just needed someone to sit with me tonight, to remind me that the darkness always passes eventually. I could have been that someone. All it would have cost me was a movie I slept through anyway. In the weeks after, I found myself replaying our last conversation obsessively. Each time, I rewrite it in my head. I say yes. I drive over. I sit with him through the evening. I listen. I notice. I help. But reality doesn't bend to our wishes. Time doesn't rewind. And some words once spoken can never be taken back. "You'll be fine." 3 syllables that echo in my ears when I lie awake at night. 3 syllables that remind me how easily we can fail the people we love most. It's been 8 months since that rainy Friday night. 8 months of carrying those words with me, of hearing Alex's voice ask for company and my own voice dismiss his need. 8 months of wondering what might have been different if I just paid attention. Fall has arrived now, bringing with it a chill that seems to settle in my bones. Alex loved autumn, the changing leaves, football season, Halloween with the kids. This would have been his favorite time of year. I've changed since that night. Not in ways that people would notice immediately. I still go to work, coach my son's soccer team, fix things around the house. But inside, something fundamental has shifted. I answer every call now, no matter the time. I listen more carefully. I watch for the things people aren't saying. My wife noticed the change first. "You don't have to be everyone's lifeline," she said gently one night after I'd spent 2 hours on the phone with a college acquaintance going through a divorce. "I do, though," I replied, and I couldn't explain why without feeling my throat close up, without hearing those final words echo in my head again. "You'll be fine." I've become hypervigilant about the people in my life. I text friends randomly, just to check in. I stop by my parents' house unannounced. I watch my children with an intensity that sometimes makes them uncomfortable, as if by paying close enough attention now, I can somehow make up for what I missed before. Sarah and the kids moved in with her parents for a while. The house held too many memories, she said, too many questions without answers. They're in a new place now, across town. The kids are in therapy. Sarah is starting to smile again, but her eyes hold a knowledge now that wasn't there before, that the world can change irrevocably in a single evening. We talk often, Sarah and I, about Alex, about memories, about guilt. He called me that afternoon. She confessed one day over coffee, her fingers tracing the rim of her mug, before he called you. Asked if we were having fun, if the kids missed him. I waited, letting her find the words at her own pace. I was distracted. Mom was making dinner, the kids were being loud. I told him we were fine, that he shouldn't worry about us. Her eyes met mine. I didn't ask if he was okay. We sit with our shared guilt sometimes, Sarah and I. Not to wallow in it, but to acknowledge it, to learn from it, to make sure we never miss those quiet pleas for connection again. The hardest part, for both of us, is the memories that ambush us when we least expect them. Passing the basketball court where Alex used to play pickup games on Saturdays, hearing his favorite song on the radio, finding his name still in my phone contacts. I can't bring myself to delete it. Last month I was cleaning out my desk drawer at home and found an old birthday card from him. Inside he'd written, "Thanks for always being there. You're the brother I got to choose." The brother I got to choose. Had I been there, really there, when it mattered most? The evidence suggested otherwise. Little things trigger the memory of that last call now. Rain against windows. The specific ringtone I had assigned to him. Friday evenings when the house is quiet. Each time I find myself back in that hallway, phone to my ear, half my attention already back with my family at the dinner table. I don't want to be alone tonight. Words so simple, yet so difficult to say. Words that carried more weight than I recognized at the time. My therapist, yes, I started seeing one, calls it complicated grief. She says the guilt I feel is normal, but not entirely rational. That I couldn't have known. That one visit might not have changed anything, but she wasn't there. She didn't hear the tone in his voice. She didn't feel the weight of our 20 years of friendship pressing down as I made the choice to stay home. Last week was his birthday. He would have been 34. I took the day off work and drove to the lake where we used to go fishing in college. It was deserted on a weekday, just me and the quiet water and the memories of better days. I brought a small cake, sang happy birthday softly, feeling ridiculous and heartbroken all at once. Then I sat on the dock and spoke to him as if he could hear me. "I'm sorry, Alex," I said to the still water. "I'm sorry I didn't listen when you needed me to. I'm sorry I didn't see what was happening. I'm sorry I wasn't the friend you thought I was." The wind rustled the trees around the lake. Birds called to each other across the water. "I miss you," I continued, my voice breaking. "I miss your laugh and your stupid jokes and the way you always remembered everyone's birthday. I miss planning vacations together and watching our kids grow up side by side. I miss knowing you're just a phone call away." I stayed until sunset, occasionally skipping stones across the water like we used to do, competing to see who could get the most bounces. I always won those contests, except for the one time I let him win on his 30th birthday, though he never knew I'd done it on purpose. When I finally packed up to leave, I noticed a perfectly flat stone near where I'd been sitting, the kind ideal for skipping. I picked it up, turned it over in my hand, and put it in my pocket instead of sending it across the water. I carry it with me now, alongside the weight of those 4 words. Together, they remind me of what I lost and what I still have, the chance to do better with the people who remain in my life. 3 weeks ago, my daughter had a panic attack before a school presentation. It was late. I had an early meeting the next day, and my first instinct was to tell her she'd be fine, to go back to bed. Instead, I sat with her on the edge of her bed. I listened as she explained her fears. I breathed with her until the panic subsided. I stayed until she fell asleep. The next morning, bleary-eyed at work, a colleague commented that I looked tired. "Rough night," I explained. "Everything okay?" she asked. I thought about it for a moment. "No," I said finally. "But I was there, and that's what matters." Because I've learned that "you'll be fine" is sometimes the cruelest thing we can say to someone who's drowning. That presence matters more than platitudes. That 5 minutes of genuine connection can sometimes make the difference between someone making it through the night or not. I've connected with Sarah's family more deeply in these past months. Her parents have become like my own. The kids call me Uncle Ethan, and I show up for every game and recital, not out of obligation, but because I've learned how precious these moments are, how quickly they can disappear. Last Friday, Sarah called me late in the evening. "The kids are finally asleep," she said, her voice tired but warm. "It's so quiet here now." I heard what she wasn't saying, recognized the echo of Alex's words from that night. "Want some company?" I offered. "I could bring over that terrible action movie Alex always loved to mock." Her laugh was soft, slightly broken, but real. "That would be nice, actually. I'll be there in 20 minutes, I promised. And I was. We didn't talk much that night, just sat together on her couch, watching a movie so bad it was almost good, occasionally sharing memories of the man we both loved. At some point she cried quietly, and I passed her tissues without comment. When the movie ended, I asked if she wanted me to stay a bit longer. She nodded. Sometimes that's all someone needs. Not advice, not reassurance, just presence. If I could send one message back through time to my former self, the distracted man standing in his hallway while his friend's voice trembled with unspoken need, it would be this: when someone says they don't want to be alone, believe them. When someone reaches out, reach back. Everything else can wait, because I've discovered that the most important moments in life rarely announce themselves with fanfare. They slip in disguised as ordinary requests: a phone call during dinner, a quiet admission of loneliness, a friend saying, "I don't want to be alone tonight." And what makes these moments extraordinary isn't necessarily what happens during them. It's what happens if we miss them entirely. So if there's a call waiting on your phone, or a message you've been meaning to respond to, or a friend you've been worried about, don't wait. That simple request might contain more than you think. It might be someone saying, in their own quiet way, that they need you. Not tomorrow, not when it's convenient. Now. And if someone trusts you enough to admit they're not okay, the very least you can do is believe them, because they might not be fine after all, and your presence might be the thing that makes all the difference.